Good morning, class. It's a gorgeous morning here on the banks of Lake Louisville. I have a beaver friend that just went around the corner over there, and so I'm going to head down the trail and see if I can get another glimpse of it. Hey everyone, this is the United States' largest rodent, the beaver. They get up to 80 pounds. This one's pretty good size. But while we're on the topic of beavers, let's talk about keystone species and ecosystem engineers. These Canada geese. They're so loud, flying about 10 feet over my head. That was pretty awesome. I wish I'd gotten that on camera a little better, but you know, with it facing me, that was kind of hard. Anyway, let's talk about ecosystem engineers. Let's talk about keystone species. Keystone species are those species which the rest of the ecosystem sort of relies, right? And it's for myriad reasons. It can be structural. That's kind of what we're going to talk about with beavers, is that structure can change an entire habitat. These beavers go up this creek and get into the ponds and things like that, and they even construct things here, and they change the water flow, they change the sedimentation. You see there's more deposit of sediment here, and that's because the water slows down, right? And there's all sorts of changes that start to happen as the water changes, the sediment settles out, turbidity changes, then the temperature changes, the oxygen changes. But we call these beavers, we call them an ecosystem engineer because they're changing those abiotic factors that then lead to a completely different habitat. And that's also what makes them a keystone species. Now, keystone species can also change the biotic communities as well. And if you look up sea otters, then you kind of understand that one. Keystone species make lots of impacts, but the idea is that without that species, then it'll crumble. Ecosystem engineers are those species that, you know, really change the physical structure of the habitat in some way. And this can be lots of things, big and small. This can be elephants, bison, like for instance, like bison wallows. That's a structural part of a prairie ecosystem that is needed. It becomes a microhabitat for loads of other living things. This is true of like the termites in Africa. It's also true of my little beaver friend over here. Beavers make a huge impact on an ecosystem for good and for bad. Here, it's good. It's a native species, and they dam up the water to slow the water down. It causes better water filtration. It creates slow water habitats for Canada geese. All sorts of other living things. It's amazing the habitat they create. Watch your toes. The common snapping turtle. Now, they're an invasive exotic in Tierra del Fuego, and it makes a huge impact there, and for bad. That species is not supposed to be there, and that's not how that ecosystem is supposed to physically be structured. First step in this research project is to look into keystone species. Now, this is AP, so we're going to do a lot of research. You're going to look up 5 keystone species, explain the ecosystem, the whole system. You're going to give me a whole rundown on why that ecosystem depends on that species. Why is it a keystone species? Explain that throughout. Now, of the 5, I'm going to assign you 3 of them that you got to know. The beaver, the American alligator, and the sea otter. The other 2 are up to you. But for all 5, I want you to cite your research. You need to give me the links to the case studies that you read that formulated your understanding of that species. Because if it's wrong, I need to correct it. So that's why we're doing this. It's all about learning. Next step is to research 5 ecosystem engineers. Like I said, this can be anything from fungus all the way up to our largest animals like the African elephant. There's lots of things that can be ecosystem engineers. So you should have a lot to work with here. Look up 5. Explain the ecosystem, explain how they change the structure of that ecosystem, and give me the links to the cited research.